Welcome to After Hours, conversations for music educators presented by Amro Music. This is where we share ideas and work towards solutions to better serve your students. This week, Nick Averwater talks about hosting a beginner concert in person and online with Marcia Neal and George Quinlan Jr. This conversation was recorded October 20th, 2020.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to After Hours, Conversations for Music Educators. We're thrilled that you're joining us this evening. We've got a great conversation lined up with some really incredible people. But before we do, I've just got a couple of announcements that I want to share with everyone. Of course, if this is your first time joining us for After Hours, welcome. If you've got any questions that you'd like to ask our guests, please be sure that you're using that Q&A box with any questions that you have, rather than the chat box. That's what we keep an eye on during tonight's conversation. Now, looking ahead, we've got another great conversation lined up. Our next After Hours will be November 17th with Dr. Brandon Robinson. We'll be talking about how to build student leaders in your band and orchestra program. So really looking forward to that conversation. And again, if you're looking for any of our previous conversations, last week we hosted Scott Lang. Marcia Neal's been on. She's a repeat customer. Welcome back, or a repeat guest. Welcome back, Marcia. If you're looking for any of these previous conversations, you can find them all at amromusic.com/after hours, or wherever you get your podcast. And lastly, as a quick reminder, Amro Music, the company I work for, has graciously agreed to continue supporting and funding this podcast, including our Zoom membership and the production expenses. So if you're enjoying this webinar and would like to support the After Hours podcast, you can do so by purchasing your school supplies, books, and accessories from our director services team. And you can reach them at Seth and Alan at amromusic.com. So that's enough from me. Let's meet our guests, George and Marcia. Welcome. How are y'all this evening?
Good, great.
Excellent. Yeah, great. Well, before I get started, first, I just want to say thank you to both of you. I mean, I'm sitting here with two people who have committed themselves to advancing music education in our communities. I mean, Marcia, real quick, I mean, you're the Senior Director of Education for Yamaha. You retired from education as the coordinator of secondary fine arts for Clark County, Las Vegas. You serve on multiple boards, including the Music Achievement Council. You're an avid writer. And I understand you've given clinics in 41 states. Is that correct?
I actually think it hit 42 because I did Montana last week, which was a first. So we're now up to 42.
That is fabulous. I mean, somebody who's just committed her career to advancing music education. And George, I can't let you off the hook either. I mean, you're the CEO and an ed rep for Quinlan and Fabish. You serve on the board of directors for the Midwest Clinic, the board of trustees for Vandercook College of Music, the past president of the National Association of School Music Dealers. I mean, I feel like I'm in royal company here. So I really appreciate both of you for everything that you've done.
Right back at you, Nick.
So George, I'm going to kick off with you, man. Today we're talking about that first concert, that first performance, and why it's so important. So for those that aren't familiar with the concept behind first performance, do you mind just giving us a rundown of what that looks like for a beginning band or orchestra student?
Sure. Well, of course, everyone has a first performance. It's just a matter of when that happens. And, you know, the organization that all three of us belong to, the Music Achievement Council, early on, probably, I think about 40 years ago, it was formed. And they recognized that there was not a lot of attention directed towards recruiting and retention. So early on, they focused in on those two things as a way of maybe helping teachers and students for that very first year or two of instruction. So long before we got involved, the concept of a demonstration concert was put together by the council. And at that time, Sandy Feldstein, the noted band composer, was part of the council. And so they brainstormed the concept of what it should be. And essentially he put the music and the rest of the concert together. So what is it? Well, it's a demonstration concert with a script. So the idea was to make it easy for teachers to basically do this. Don't have to think, you don't have to, come up with anything out of the ordinary. Just do this and it'll work really well. So So I know it's mostly a podcast, but here's what it looks like if you're seeing visual. And it's been around a long time. And because of that, it's somewhat dated. So we're going to talk later on about the newer versions of this. But within that packet, it looks like a piece of band music, and it's also available for orchestra. It has all the parts for the students, and it has a script, and it has some promotional posters. And I think in the day, it had some certificates as well. And basically, it was to have a really great experience for young performers within their first, let's say, 8 to 9, 10 weeks of instruction, to provide some positive reinforcement for them so their parents can be in the audience and witness they've got to perform in just 2 months. And as I always tell young teachers that might be a little reluctant to do this, if they see a group of 50 students sitting still in their chairs for 20 minutes, they will believe you're a miracle worker. Because they can't get their kid to sit still for 5 minutes.
Right.
You know?
That's
And so the fact that they can just get them there and have them look like they're going to be musicians and actually play recognizable music it's a win-win-win right there. Everyone wins. The kids are happy. Teacher looks great. And the students have gotten their first performance under their belt. One of the components that's been in it from the beginning, as we said, it's a scripted program. So it's a welcome, the narrator welcomes the audience. But the key is to choose the narrator. And I always say you want to find a school celebrity. And so you start right up at the top. The first year you do it, maybe you invite the superintendent and he or she just gets up in front of the audience and does a great job, and they feel vested that they're part of the band or the orchestra program. Well, the next year, maybe you invite the principal. And then after you do this a number of years, you can start recognizing some of the B-list celebrities in the school that sometimes are more popular than the A-listers.
right.
Like Phil, the custodian, or, Jan, the bookkeeper. And this could be a highlight of their career in that school, just being the narrator for the beginning orchestra program at their school. So it's one of those things that the goodwill just keeps on giving and giving and giving. And it's not that hard to put together.
Yeah. So George, I noticed one of the things that you kept mentioning is you called it a demonstration concert. And I think that's very intentional, because when we hear the word concert, we envision the black tuxedos and very formal attire, and we're playing these very hard pieces. And that's not really the purpose of this. You called it a demonstration concert. So what exactly is it that the students play, and how hard is it?
Sure. So part of the script after the welcoming is somewhat comical. So, you get kids already in first position, and then they get their instruments and they snap them up to get ready to perform. And the narrator says, well, here's what it sounded like the very first day. And the kids can just blow whatever they want into that instrument, make noise, make it sound as bad as you can. And the audience laughs, and then it moves on progressively. It's like after the first day, we were all able to play this concert F. I believe that's the note they start on. And everybody plays it together for 4 counts and starts together and stops together. And the parents are like, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm seeing. This person is unbelievable, this teacher. And then it progresses to, then we learned a thing called harmony. And here are 2 different notes being played together. And I think it culminates, according to the very first one, with a version of When the Saints Go Marching In. So it kind of takes the audience progressively from the first day to where we're at after 9 weeks.
So a little different. I mean, the musicality is not the focus. It's really the journey that the kids are on. Yeah. So Marcia, you work with a lot of educators, and you've talked to a lot of educators about this. And one of the things that I know I hear all the time when I'm pitching this or when I approach somebody is they say, well, that's too early, or my kids just aren't ready for a concert. What's your response to that?
Well, again, I think it goes back to the whole concept of it being a demo concert, to show mom and dad what a band really is, or an orchestra. And because, think about what they're hearing at home, the individual instrument being rehearsed for the first time and what it sounds like, and nothing maybe too recognizable right at first, But as George said, when they all sit down together and they begin to play and they begin to see the discipline of the students and how much fun that they're having, and particularly you got to watch the kids, because the kids hear that applause and they go wild. I mean, they're so excited and they're smiling and looking around at each other, because this is a first experience for them. And as was mentioned, there's only one opportunity to have that first experience, so you want it to have it be very special. So what I tell educators is, don't wait. If you wait till the kids are playing perfectly, then you'll never give a concert forever. But if you start now, then the kids get into the joy of music making and being with their friends and having this experience. And I really like to point out that that moms and dads begin to see what might be in their future. I really love when high school kids can become involved in a typical setting. When we are in person, we could have high school students maybe in their marching band uniform passing out programs and talking to parents, or are there questions that you have? And moms and dads then will begin to see that could be my child. So that we start to establish that long view of being involved in music education programs.
Yeah. And I love that, Marcia. And I think you're right, because who does this really well is Little League sports. I mean, if you've ever watched a kindergarten t-ball team out there, they have like one practice, just enough for the coach to learn the kids' names. They throw them on the field. And if you want to go to a game, you have to park like in a parking lot at the shopping center across the street to go watch these kids. And from a strictly sports perspective, I think if we're honest, we recognize that those kids are not good from a sports perspective, but that's not why they're there. That's not why the parents are there. And so we're applying those exact same principles to music. And I love that.
It's this, we thought about the fact that we thought about soccer actually as a kind of like a analogous to what we're doing, in that you just put the kids out there and they go in the wrong direction and they kick the ball in the wrong way and all that. But you're right. It's not so much about having it be a perfect concert. It's about getting them out there and getting them doing it, because the more often that they perform, the more that they're going to get better at it, and the fear kind of drops off, and now we start to deal with the enjoyment of it. And so yeah, I think that sports analogy is perfect.
Yeah. So George, do I remember that you've narrated one of these concerts?
Well, I've narrated many of them.
Tell me about the general experience of being in one of those. And I know we saw one at Midwest a couple of years ago, and it was really cool to see a 6th grade band play at Midwest, a beginning band. Tell me what it's like, what you've noticed as a narrator.
Yeah. Well, the most recent one, I think the one we've talked about, was last year about this time. And it was in suburban Chicago, as Joel Matter at Edison Middle School. And I think their school celebrity canceled out for some reason.
Oh, no.
The person got sick or whatever. And so I was asked, I was honored. So I show up and I do the scripted program, pretty much the way it was laid out here. He had some really interesting twists to it. But one of the things that caught me by surprise, which was kind of cool, because sometimes after the concert, there's always the added value. What did we do in addition to the music and the performance? And those certificates are great, where it says you're now a musician, you're no longer a beginner. And he had the school dolphin, which is a guy named Eddie the Dolphin, running around afterwards. And the school, all the kids love Eddie the Dolphin. And so part of the post-concert celebration with cookies and, punch was you got to get your picture with Eddie the Dolphin. And so I got my picture with Eddie the Dolphin.
All right.
I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
So, and you referred also to the one at the Midwest Clinic. That was a couple years ago. And, those of you teachers that have been to that know that's the world's most critical audience, and yet we had 2 volunteer young directors. Well, one was a second-year teacher, and we partnered him up with a more experienced teacher. And they combined a beginning band that had started in September. And they performed a first performance concert for the world's most critical audience at the Midwest Clinic. But also the parents came too. and they were given preferred front row seating, and there were probably 100 of them. And to kind of spice it up, we were talking about who to choose for a narrator. So we actually got a local TV reporter to be the narrator. He's from CBS, and he was a former band student himself, so he knew exactly what this was all about. And part of the production there was at the end we wanted to emphasize the importance of retention. How many kids. So Marcia, can you remember the two questions that were posed?
Yeah, sure. The first question was we used a setup called Poll Everywhere, which allows people who have cell phones to actually enter and then in real time build like a screenshot or a word cloud, that will pop right up, and as the kids are playing. And so the first question was about that, and we asked parents to text to the Poll Everywhere number, what one feeling do you have right now watching your child playing? Now remember, these are all parents whose kids are starting for the first time, right? So as they're entering all these words, proud and joyful and the arm muscle and all that kind of stuff popping up on the screen. It was really great. And it just built this beautiful word cloud. I think the biggest word that we saw was proud, I think, George. And so the kids didn't see this because the kids were busy playing. So when the kids were finished playing and they turned around and we said, so see what your mom and dad think about this. And they turned around and you could just hear them. They were so shocked that their parents felt this way about them. I mean, there was an audible sense of disbelief. It was really cool. But the second class, so then we dismissed the kids and they went and had, I think, a little pizza thing or something. So then we had the session to explain the whole deal to all the attendees. And in the session after that was kind of halfway through, we asked the parents as part of the session. So how will you be, as a result of this, encourage your child to stay with band? And it was a yes or no. And so they would push 1 for yes and 2 for no. And in real time, we watched that block go on the yes and the no. Here's the yes, here's the no. The yes block went all the way across the screen. 100% of those parent attendees said, yes, I'm going to encourage my child to stay with the program. I mean, we were shocked, and literally it happened right in front of our eyes. And so there is no doubt that when you do this program, the biggest outcome is retention. I mean, it's just huge. But if I could, George, just say one more thing. Part of that also was to ask the band directors, how do you feel about doing this? And did it change how you approach, your teaching? And one of them said that, well, preparing your 6th grade beginning band to go to Midwest is kind of daunting. So that's number one. And so I treated my beginning band totally different. But I also was very attuned to the fact that they had to accomplish something. And I knew this by 8 to 10 weeks in. And when you put an immediate target out there that the kids know they have to, in 8 weeks or however many it is, they have to have this done, this done, this done, this done, and perform, they practice more. Gee, what a surprise. And so they play better. And so a lot of things were revealed to us that we had not thought about. Of course, we knew about the practicing part, but certainly how you as the director yourself will approach your teaching your beginners. I think that's a real remarkable revelation, actually.
It is. Yeah. I've encountered some directors that, in fact, I remember last year I got tagged in a video on Facebook, a director in Arkansas who did her first one. And she said, this is the most fun concert I've ever hosted. And it was an experienced director. And she was just loving the idea. So we've talked a lot about the why. Marcia, let's talk a little bit about the how. Okay. What resources are available if a director says, hey, I'm interested in doing this first performance? And I know we're going to talk, it's an unusual time, it's COVID. We're going to talk about directors that can host it maybe in person and also digitally. So do you mind sharing with us some of the resources that are available to directors that are interested in doing this?
Sure. And I just want to be sure that everybody knows that they can get these resources online, and they're downloadable and they're free. The Music Achievement Council is a 501c6 nonprofit. So we just put it out there for anybody to have. So let's get that right out there first. So the NAM Foundation has also been very supportive, along with the School Music Dealers Group. And so if you would search namfoundation.org and then / and then the letters are FIPPenDoc, First Performance National Day of Celebration. We love saying that, don't we, George? FIPPenDoc?
We do.
And here's what you will find. Okay, there's a toolkit with numbers of assets. So I wrote them down so I wouldn't miss anything. First of all, we have doc versions of a number of letters that can be used to personalize for you on your school letterhead. And so one is like to the director, which is from us to you to explain how all of this is used and how you go forward with it. The second one is a letter to the parents introducing what we're doing and here's when it will be and so forth. And then there's one that's to the principal explaining what you're doing and why and all of that. And hopefully inviting the principal either to serve as the narrator or at least to attend and to meet the parents. And they generally like to do that when they can. In addition, though, we also have a press release template, which is really easy to use. It can be used to put in your school newsletter or to even put out in your community newspaper. So we have that available. Of course, there's the whole script, which literally walks you through the whole concert, which I think maximum is about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, depending on the amount of applause that you get, of course, from the parents, which will always, always be jovial and over the moon applause, as you would guess. And then one of the things I printed out to show you, because I just really like this one particular asset, it's called the Ideas to Enhance the Performance. It looks like this. And this is what you would use with your high school students, if you're a high school band director, how to engage your high school kids in this event. And that's really an important part of the retention. The kids, when the kids see the high school kids involved, they tend to want to be like the older kids. So they follow along with that as well. In addition, and George already mentioned the certificates, but we always have these available certificates. They're modifiable. It's a certificate template. And we have two versions. And the first one's for the kids themselves, which is called a certificate of advancement. And the reason it's not achievement, it's because they advance literally after doing this from a beginning musician to a member of the band. So it kind of changes the aspect of how they see themselves, because now we're an ensemble, we play together. And then the second one is for the high school students. And that one's called a Certificate of Music Education Leadership, which is kind of a nice thing to honor the high school kids who are taking the time to participate and be involved in retention. It's great because it's buy-in on their part to keep their program continuing on and leaving a legacy for the younger kids to come. But this year, something really special has happened because of our COVID situation. We thought, how can we provide something for people who are 100% virtual or some kind of hybrid. And so what we've done is we've gone virtual. And so what we decided that the best way to do this was to pre-record the entire first performance concert. And so Joe Lamond, who's president and CEO of NAMM, Charlie Mangini is also involved, and I, the three of us, have produced this. Not produced it, but we put it up on the website, the NAMM Foundation website that I mentioned, as well as we're putting it on YouTube, which is great. And what happens is the kids then basically will watch the video. You set up the date and the time as the director. And then that day you share the YouTube link with the students and you tell them what time to sign on. And basically they're playing along with the video. Okay, because there was just no way, and they have to understand it's a national event. It's happening all over the country. Of course, everybody's doing different days and times. That's okay. The point is that the students feel like they're doing something truly special, and it's very encouraging and motivating. And in fact, we thought wouldn't it be fun to make a trailer? And of course, Nick, you were so helpful with getting that up and running. And I wondered, is it possible that you would have it handy? You could show everybody the trailer that we could share with the kids?
Yeah, I would be more than happy to. So we've got all these resources. Great. Let me do a quick screen share here.
Okay, great.
So for our those joining us with video, of course, here is all of the website that Marsha's talking about, and everything she just mentioned you can download here in this toolkit. All of the parts, the tracks, everything is available for you to download here. But let me jump over to this other video here. And I can't remember if I hit, let's do screen share. There we go. Share computer sound. Be sure I hit that button.
Okie doke.
All right.
And there it is.
Yeah, so all of this is readily available, completely turnkey for anybody that's interested in doing this, both in person, hosting an in-person concert, or hosting a play-along concert digitally for friends and family. So we've got the trailer and all of that content. Mm-hmm. So Marsha, I'll pass it back over to you.
Well, except the only other thing I would want to tell people is that it's if the kids participate, when you're done as a director, then you would have those certificates that you could download and then issue them to your kids to kind of signify this very first performance, because it's a big deal. The other thing is that the tracks and the studio tracks, as well as the music, thank you to Hal Leonard from Essential Elements Book 1, has all been posted here as well. So it's all downloadable, it's all free. And you can then download this to share with your students, and they can start practicing then along with the tracks. Now, what they might want to not really know, or you can do whatever you decide, but these are exactly the same things that will be used in the video. So the video has the tracks. When Charlie starts conducting the students in the music, they'll just play along with the tracks that they will have already been rehearsing with. So they're going to feel, I think, pretty special about having accomplished this. And then we're asking if it's possible, if you can do this, to have the parents take pictures of their children as they're playing in the first concert, and then put it up on social media with that hashtag FIPandDoc, so that we can share with each other the joyful experience of making music together for that very first time. It's pretty special.
That's great, Marsha. I mean, what a cool idea. I mean, and if I'm an educator, I have to imagine I'm excited. I've got this great curriculum, this great content that I can provide my students. It gets horns to faces or on shoulders. It gets kids playing together, which is perfect. And then if I'm joining right now as an industry or as a school music dealer, I've got this great content that now I can provide my educators in the area and continue to strengthen that partnership. So, I mean, this is just a great win-win for everybody that's involved. So, George, we talked a little bit about National Day of Celebration. So we've spent the majority of this time talking about first performance and the actual event of performing for that first time. But there's another component to this, and that's the National Day of Celebration. And we were introduced to that a few years ago. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Certainly. Let me backtrack just a couple topics before I wanted to reinforce what Marsha mentioned about retention. So me and Eddie the dolphin are sitting there after the Edison Middle School, and a parent walks up to me and says, this was great, blah, blah, blah. And she says, my son was ready to drop, but I just talked to him. He's going to stay with it. Yeah. And I was like, there you go. It's anecdotal, but we saved one more just because Eddie the dolphin made his appearance at the concert. So that was great. And I also want to give a shout out to, because we saw their picture a little bit in some of those screen shares you did. The two directors at the Midwest were two young teachers named Niall Taylor and Mario Moody from South Holland, Illinois. So just a shout out to them. Yeah, so now, so back to the FIPandDoc and a National Day of Celebration. Well, it's like going viral. To get attention nowadays, you got to have an event. It's got to be shared on social media and all that. So we tried to brainstorm as when would the most likely time be that it would be ideal for most beginning programs to celebrate this. And we ended up with the third week of November, the week before Thanksgiving, as a day. And now the idea is have a concert that day if you're able. If you're unable, and everyone is this year probably, find another way to celebrate. Do a virtual concert, or even if it's just having an announcement that the XYZ middle school band, this is a National Day of Celebration. We want to salute all the sixth grade band members and pass out the certificates during band class or something like that. Just some way to recognize that they're part of a movement, that's nationwide, and they get to bring the certificate home and share it with their parents. When we return to live performances, one thing that's kind of evolved as we got more into this is years ago when Sandy Felstein kind of crafted this, a lot of the method books didn't have a lot of tunes in them. There were a lot of exercises, line 1, line 2. And so it was kind of hard to put a concert together where there were songs. But the current modern band methods and orchestra methods are loaded up with folk songs and play-alongs and all kinds of cool stuff. So the emphasis is now not really on the music, although for the virtual, you got to stick to the program that's there. But when we return to live concerts, we've seen all kinds of really cool adapted versions where the script has been modernized or punched up a little bit for the local flavor, and the songs have been modernized, and maybe they bring in soloists from the 7th and 8th grade or the high school, or the principal if that person plays an instrument, or somebody like that to enhance the performance that's part of the program to begin with. So whether you perform that day, whether you just acknowledge and recognize those students, you'll be participating in the National Day of Celebration.
Yeah, that's great, George. And I think that one of the inspirations from this was Make Music Day, which usually happens in the summertime. My memory serves me correctly. And it's just such a day that brings people together, regardless of what instrument you play. You're part of something bigger. And I think that was something that was really driving this concept is, hey, we need to have this apply to our beginning musicians where they feel a part of this bigger event, this bigger activity, like they're part of something. Because when you have that feeling, your retention goes up and you want to continue to be a part of that. And George, to your point, one of the things I love about this program is it's structured and turnkey, but not confining. And I think it's important that, again, we talk about, what you play, and quite frankly, when you play it or the style that you play it is really not all of that important, but it's the benefit behind the concept. It's just the act of the performance where you see all of those benefits. So I think it's great that we recognize that as we go and do that. So Marcia, for you, from an educator's perspective, how does this National Day of Celebration fit into the curriculum, and what are some ways that directors can incorporate this into what they're doing in the classroom?
Well, right off the bat, I just want to say this is a huge advocacy thing for your program. I can remember going to one of these in my local school district, and the principal was the person who was doing the emceeing of the program. And so all of the parents were there, of course, huge numbers of parents, and the kids they were sitting on a gym floor. There were so many kids. And so the script was adapted a bit for him to say, so here's what we offer at our school. And he started with, Trump. He started naming all the instruments, right? Well, as soon as he would name a section, the entire section would stand up and start screaming, holding their instruments, and so would their parents. It was amazing. So then they would sit down and they'd say, okay, and we offer the trombone. Well, the trombone kids would get up, and they're playing with this. It just turned into so much fun. And that's the whole point of this thing. It's just really fun. And it kicks the year off in such a good way, a feel good way. Everything about this is just success based. So many good things. But how does this work? Well, you're working already, in the method book and step by step trying to teach the kids note by note. And I think that there are only, George, maybe 5 notes or something in the whole thing that we cover. Maybe it's really very simple. And so if in whatever method book you're using, it works. So that you can use, if you're going to use the virtual one, of course, we have prescribed the music for that, of course, but we don't prescribe any music at all. You can use your method book and just choose pieces out of that. As I recall, when we did the Midwest Clinic, the teachers had decided to do kind of like a music around the world kind of thing, and they took the song that was the finisher, and they did it. What does it sound like in Mexico? And what does it sound? So it was so much fun in that way. So how does it fit with the curriculum? Well, obviously we're teaching kids how to play, and then they're going to use that exact material in this particular, I hate to say, even call it a performance demonstration. It builds character and it builds confidence in their playing ability. They're having a great time. The principal sees the massive numbers of parents coming out and how happy they are to see their kids playing. I mean, you can't get better advocacy than this. There's nothing that I can say more than the fact that it's just feel good all the way around.
Yeah, I do remember that from the Midwest performance the directors were talking about. I think they played 3 different styles based on different geographies around the world. And they were talking about each week when they studied that style, it was the same area, the same geography that they were learning about in their social studies class.
Yeah,
and so
right,
here they were
exactly
cross collaborating with teachers in other programs to talk about musical styles based on geography, and then they performed it. Mm-hmm. So again, just so many unique things that you can do right now. And again, I know people are looking for collaboration opportunities and curriculum ideas and things like that. So there's a lot of ways to do this uniquely. Marcia. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say the other thing that I think it does that, and maybe we sort of talked around it, it begins to build that band culture or ensemble culture where, we together are better than we are separately, and once they have that joyous occasion together, then they see each other in the hallway and they have immediate connection with each other, because now they're not just sitting in band class playing through the exercises. They've had this huge experience together that that really made it special.
Yeah, absolutely. So George, you briefly mentioned the date, but I want to come back to this because when we talk about the National Day of Celebration, I think this is one of the sticking points that we have to take a moment to unpack a little bit further. So the National Day of Celebration, if my memory serves me correctly, is on the 3rd Thursday of each November, if I remember.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be that day. That day is strictly a recommendation, and it's the day when a lot of other people are participating, but it doesn't have to be the day that you participate. Am I understanding that correctly?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If your concert was in October, that's great. Just find another way to recognize those kids sometime on the National Day of Celebration. Maybe the certificates, maybe just the announcement. If your concert's in December, maybe you can promote, what it's going to be, a little teaser or something like that. Just some way to recognize that this is a national event that these kids are participating in, and their first performance will actually be December 3rd. But we're participating in this National Day of Celebration to support the kids.
Yeah. So no matter what, I know we're talking with a lot of teachers right now, and things are just not progressing as quickly as they would in a normal year. Understandably, we've got AB schedules, we've got online learning, we've got quite the headwind. So this year we shouldn't let the date be the thing that holds us up. It's okay, and we completely understand. And whatever it looks like in your school, you can apply it to fit your program and to fit your needs. So that's great.
And so I wanted to also mention that if the teachers go to the site, and you can actually preview the entire 17-minute concert, so you can actually see what it is before, so that you as an educator have a concept of what you're going to be asking your kids to do. All right. So that'll be available. Just watch the whole thing, like 17 and a half minutes or so. And then you can download the materials and use, what you feel is appropriate in terms of letters, if you want to do those, or just the parts, and maybe the tracks, and maybe the video, the promotional video that we showed you. So that would be good.
Right. Well, I just, this is such a fabulous project. And I know we have to extend our thanks to our friends at Hal Leonard and at the NAM Foundation. I mean, there's been a lot of people behind the scenes making this project a reality. I know, shout out to Steve Smith, the product manager for Essential Elements. I know he did a lot of heavy lifting when it came to the arranging and actually getting these in a place where they can be shared. And again, completely free. I mean, these people were all donating their time. So to our partners,
Bryant too, over at NAM. Oh,
Sharon Bryant at NAM. So to our partners at NAM and the NAM Foundation and Hal Leonard and everybody that worked behind the scenes, this is very cool that we're able to do this and offer this to students. And so thank you to all of them. So George and Marcia, we're wrapping up here. We've covered some great ground. I love this content. I'm going to come back and ask you if you just have any closing thoughts or advice you want to share with everyone as we're kind of in this unusual time. But before I do that, I just want to send a quick reminder to everybody that all of the content we've talked about tonight is available completely for free. It's on the NAM Foundation website. You can go to namfoundation.org. We're going to link to it on our website as well. So if you go to amromusic.com/after hours, you can find this recording and we'll have direct links to all of the content that we talked about here tonight. So if you're listening, you're driving in your car, you're listening through the podcast, don't worry, we're going to make this as easy as possible for you to find this. And we can't wait to hear your success stories. Please tag us on Facebook, send us a message and tell us all about the content or how you're using this content in your classroom, because we're really excited to hear about it. So, and as a reminder again as well, our next After Hours will be November 17th with Dr. Brandon Robinson and built on building student leaders. So on that note, George, do you just have any closing thoughts, advice, or suggestions that you want to share with our listeners here before we conclude?
You know, when I knew I was going to be chatting with you about this, I reached out to several of our local directors here for advice and tips, and I got some great ones. We just got a note, thanks for including orchestra. And one of the best tips I got was from Lori Rollins in St. Charles, Illinois, her orchestra. Now, I was aware of what they did at the end of the year, which is every orchestral student, and this is a fairly large district, so I think there's about 800 kids in a gymnasium. Obviously, we can't do that during COVID, but perform together. So they make this music simple enough for the beginners, in April. And they bring in a rock band, a live rock band right in the middle. And every level from, I think they start in 4th grade through 12th grade, participates in the same concert. And so that's another part. Now we have to get them to the next level. One of the great teachers around here asked me one day, said, his name is Chip DeStefano. And he said, you know what the purpose of 5th grade band is? And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, purpose of 5th grade band is to get them to 6th grade.
Yeah, right.
Purpose of 6th grade band is we're always recruiting for the next grade levels.
Right.
Like, I understand what you're saying. So, it starts with the first performance here. So I asked her, well, what are you doing now? And they're going to do one of those video where the kids record their own parts. And yeah, it's going to take a little tweaking to make it work. But then I think the idea is for the kids to play along with the group at home too, when they do their first performance for their parents. So that was a really great idea. It could be incorporated for band. I was talking with one of our teachers in Indiana, and because they were going to perform outside. The weather is still okay. And so they did. They had a outdoor concert with the older kids, the young kids dressed up in their polo shirts, and they did a live stream. And it worked out great. They were just out on the football field. They could get, within all the health guidelines, they could pull that off. So I think they played Jaws. They featured each section. So the trombones played Jaws and, all those kind of fun things that the parents like and the kids like. So it's a great thing to just share among, teachers, and sometimes band instrument reps are the best people to do that. They get a great idea from, teacher A, and they bring it to teacher B, C, D, and E on their route that day. Next thing you know, everybody's, up their games. So we like to just keep the conversation moving for recruiting and retention. And sometimes the sharing of ideas, that's, nobody has all the answers, but everybody has some of the answers, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thanks, George. Those are some great ideas. And again, a great example of how directors are incorporating the concepts into their curriculum. Marcia, how about you? Any closing thoughts or final advice before we depart?
Yeah, I don't want to forget to remind teachers about msfq.org, Nick. And so I want to do that. And MSFQ stands for More to Start, Fewer to Quit, msfq.org/guide. And when you go there, you can sign up. And what will happen is every month now, you will receive time sensitive recruitment tip, a retention tip, and a success tip. And the one for October just went out, I think, today. But I was going to just share that with everybody. And when you do that, you'll be able to download our retention guide, which will be available to you as soon as you do that. So be sure to sign up for that, because it's a great resource and a reminder that, hey, this is that time of year you should, book your concert or, order this. I mean, it's got lots of suggestions and you'll benefit immensely.
Yeah. And I am inspired every time I read those monthly tips. The team of writers behind the scenes doing this are really some incredible people and incredible educators sharing their experiences. So again, thank you to our tremendous team of writers that are behind the scenes writing these monthly tips, and for Marcia organizing it. But yeah, if you're just looking for turnkey monthly content with a recruiting tip, a survival or a success tip, and a retention tip, it'll be right in your inbox every single month. So again, for our listeners, I'll be sure to put that link as well in the resources from today's recording. So, well, Marcia, George, thank you both so much. I mean, we've got some great ideas, some great content, some great resources for those that are interested in hosting their first performance, both in person and digitally, and as well as those interested in participating in the National Day of Celebration. And again, as Marcia said, the goal is to get more to start and fewer to quit through retention and recruiting our students. So George, Marcia, thank you so much. Everybody have a wonderful evening. To our listeners, have a wonderful night. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, and we'll see you next time. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to After Hours, Conversations for Music Educators, presented by Amro Music. This podcast features conversations with music educators who are finding innovative ways to teach their students. You can hear and see more conversations at amromusic.com/afterhours.